I have Patience Serima, I have Leo Madekeni, and I have Dr. Madekeni. I also have Hopo Chimono and Joyce Kazembe, who is from Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Hello, our panelists, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Frank.
For the longest time in Zimbabwe, we've had information that has been said that the media are not given enough space. We are hearing information that our sponsors, we are hearing information that the government is not actually giving the media enough airwaves. They are not given enough platform to give access information to the electorate. Tonight, we're going to be discussing all about that. I hope Hopo and Joyce Kazembe can actually hear me. Joyce and Hopo.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Glad to be
Okay,
here.
so I'll start by asking the question, what do you think are the critical roles of the media in elections? Maybe I'll start with you, Patience, since you are amongst the media monitors here in Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Like you already indicated in your introduction, the main function of the media really is to provide information around the critical processes on elections, on voting. And we're not just talking about the campaign period itself, we're talking about the entire electoral cycle. And the electoral cycle really never ends. We are talking about the laws that govern elections. We are talking about the court cases that come on around election time. We're talking about voter registration and a whole range of other issues that impact on elections. So the role of the media is to report on all these issues. Of course, in the period that we're in, especially around campaigning, the media is there to provide that information that allows citizens to be able to make informed decisions on who to vote for, on what the principles, the values that they want from their candidates are. So that is really the main role of the media. We do, however, know that the media needs to do this work in a certain way. And so the law actually helps the media to be able to do its work. The Electoral Act in section 160E to J actually speaks to what the media is supposed to do, how the media is supposed to provide this information. And among the issues that the law talks about is the need for the media to be fair, to be accurate, to be balanced, and to be equitable in terms of the way they represent issues on elections and the way they represent candidates as well.
Taking from what Patience is saying, according to the Constitution, Leo, as a writer, is supposed to give information. What do you think, as a writer, is your role in giving out information?
Well, looking at the electoral period, I'm happy Patience talked of the electoral cycle. It's a journalist, or it is the media's role to educate its audiences.
Mm-hmm.
You realize that elections do not just involve vote-casting. There's pre-election where there's campaigning, there's vote-casting, and then there's the post-election period.
Yes.
It's all up to journalists, up to media organizations to cover that, inform, educate their audiences on what is legal, what is not, what should be done and what should not be done, who has done what and who hasn't done what, so that, like she said too, they make informed decisions, so that also they get to a point where they know that who so and so is doing things in an illegal way and should, and they can make maybe decisions to go as far as this one should be disqualified from engaging in this election.
Going to you, Hopo, what do you think, as a journalist who's mainly seen on the social media spaces, what is your role in giving out access to information?
Thank you very much. I think the role of the media during elections is indispensable, because the media is meant to educate voters on how to exercise their democratic rights. And it's supposed to report on the development of the elections, as my colleague has said, Patience. Is supposed to provide a platform for political parties and political actors who are taking part in the elections to engage with each other and with the electorate. And is supposed to provide also a platform for the public to communicate, express what they expect from their candidates, their problems. In Zimbabwe, we have a problem. For instance, we have no good healthcare and for citizens to express that they need to do it through the media, radio stations, TV stations, and so forth. But unfortunately, in Zimbabwe, we have a captured media because we only have one TV station, which is controlled by the state. And all the radio stations are controlled by the state one way or another. The only so-called independent radio station is owned by a ZANU-PF member of parliament. So it's very unhealthy. We are also there to curate debates like what you're doing right now. And we're supposed to be covering the election on the day of the election, but an election starts way before the actual date of the election, 6 months before, even 1 year before. So when people talk about election rigging, they're not talking about what happens on the day only. They're talking about the process itself, as we have been seeing with the exposures by Pachedu. Those things need to be covered by the media, and the media needs to interrogate people like Joyce Kazembe, who's here today, to answer into the issues that are being brought by these forensic edits. And it's supposed to, on the day of the election, we're supposed to be there, not just reporting on the results, but also seeing that the counting is being done according to the law, seeing that there is no intimidation of polling agents and things like that. That's part of the job of journalists and the media, and also scrutinizing the electoral process itself. And we're supposed to be providing information, not just to our citizens, but in the case of Zimbabwe, because it is a hotspot when it comes to elections, the international community will also be relying heavily on the media. I think I'll stop there and come in later.
Commissioner Kazembe, Popo actually raised a pertinent point that the state is actually controlling all media platforms that we have here in Zimbabwe. As the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, that is the governing body of elections here in Zimbabwe, what have been your observations on the conduct in the media in past elections relating to partisan coverage versus equal coverage for candidates of the parties that we have?
Thank you very much, Kumpia. You assume that I agree with everything that has been said by the others, right? But I'm also allowed to make an input on the role of the media in general, to educate, to inform, and to entertain, right? Information, what is information? What type of information? Well, Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has got the role of informing the public, as what was indicated, on all the processes that got to do with elections, from when they should go to register, what documents are needed, and the processes that are actually required. Because once you skip one of it, then you do not qualify. And then to educate is very important. What are the rules and regulations for somebody to participate, either as a voter or as a candidate, or simply as somebody who is listening and taking part as an interested party? Because the outcome of the elections do not only affect those that have voted, but it affects everybody in Zimbabwe, young babies up to the great grandfathers or fathers that are still there. And then with respect to the coverage of elections, yes, in Zimbabwe, I would like to say now the space is opening, is now more open than it was with respect to coverage of information, because we have now more radio stations, we allow some social media is there, and so the plethora of avenues of giving out information, and the people paying very cheap. I mean, what it is? Yeah, I mean, cherry picking on what they want to keep and what they want to hear, and so on. But generally, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has got the mandate to tell all the whole nation on what to expect, what is supposed to be doing, what a person is supposed to be doing when they attain the age of 18, what are the expectations with respect to getting a hold of an identity card. That is their amendment. people actually going to register, when they should go to register. I think our first presenter talked about the electoral cycle. We used to concentrate on one areas, but now it's the electoral cycle, so that education should not only start when somebody gets to be 18. Now the proposal is to start from primary school, as a matter of fact, so that they grow up knowing their rights with respect to making their decisions. So it is very, very important. With respect to partisan coverage of elections, it's still, shall we say, a challenge. Partisan coverage of elections is still a challenge in Zimbabwe. Yes, we have the public media, and the public media is supposed to be covering actually fairly everybody, so that we expect the public media, um, under the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, to actually come up with a schedule that allocates equal time to all the parties, political parties taking part, and also all candidates. Slots that are given specifically to individuals that they're supposed to be coming to be selling yourself, relating with the populace, not only the voters, so that everybody knows. But and they have to take that space, otherwise, once it's passed, they won't get it again. And some others are also, if they want more space, they have to buy that. But we've noticed also when it comes to spaces that are outside, yes, we find other media, they are following what they consider to be a way they will get news according to their determination of what news is. Yes, we have noted that there is some form of partisan coverage of media. Shall we say there is more coverage of, shall we say, the ruling party? And the excuse they give us is that this is the head of the state. They are in government, and they are relating and telling the population about what they should expect, and talking about development projects and so on. And while they are doing that, they also use that occasion to propagate what it is that why people should be voting them into power. And therefore, sometimes we can say we've written to them that they should also give adequate coverage to parties that are not in government. For now, I can say that, yes, it is a concern, yes.
The church has the role of giving access to information to the electorate. What have been your observations when it comes to accessing information, the role of the media, and what has been said before by Hopo, and what Madam Kazembe is actually saying, that the media is actually partisan here in Zimbabwe? What has been the church doing in the role of media towards giving access to information?
Thanks. I think what we see here when it comes to the church is the critical, or what I would say, the central role that the church plays when it comes to information, and also when it comes to misinformation and disinformation. Why would I say this role is critical when it comes to the dissemination of information? It's because of the level of legitimacy that the church holds, the level of trust that the people have on the church. If you read the Afrobarometer survey findings, of there around 8, people ask how much do you trust the following. If you go to the church, 78% level of trust. If you go to ZEC, 38%. If you go to the politicians who will be campaigning in elections, if you go to the president, all of them, they are below 50% level of trust. So which means the people really trust the church. The people really trust what the church says. So what you then see is that what the church disseminates and how the church disseminates information becomes very, very critical, because it has got influence on their voting behavior, on their voting decisions. What the church has been doing from where I stand, what I notice, the church has also been evolving insofar as use of media is concerned. The church has been evolving in terms of playing an active role in media. Actually, you see that various churches now have their own television stations, radio programs, and also they play a role in terms of advocacy for a level, a fair playing field, engagement of the various parties, because the church still holds that legitimacy. It can be, I think, the central player insofar as resolving the various problems that we encounter in terms of information sharing, in terms of the role of the media. is concerned.
Thank you very much. Coming to you, Patience, you're part of the media monitors here in Zimbabwe. My question is, how does ZEC monitor or penalize misconduct by media players? I know you work hand in hand with ZEC, so you might actually give us how ZEC is actually doing it.
Thank you for that question, Rachel. Maybe you should have asked the commissioner this question, but I'll um, from how from our monitoring and from our observations, there are no penalties that we have seen so far. I don't think there has been any media house or journalist that has been penalized for any kind of electoral misconduct. And including political players themselves. If you're looking at issues, for example, such as hate speech, we haven't seen any penalties that have been given to any of the players in the election. And I think this is a gap that we are already seeing in terms of the role that ZEC has. ZEC works with the Zimbabwe Media Commission and the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe to monitor the elections, to monitor conduct of the media in elections. And the challenge that is there is, yes, we have seen some of the reports that have been produced. For example, after the 2018 elections, we saw a report. But these reports come after an election has been conducted and it's over. And all the misconduct that would have happened during the electoral period in terms of reporting, um, we haven't seen any kind of action. So in terms of, while there is a media monitoring committee that has been set up by ZEC, one of the challenges that we think is there is really the failure of the commission to be able to put in a mechanism that ensures that during the electoral period, the media actually behaves well. If we have noticed, for example, in this election that there has been partisanship, what is being done about it? It won't make any change, it won't help the political parties themselves, the players, or the electorate to bring out a report 2 months after the election or even a week after the election because the damage has already been done. So while the damage is being done, we also expect the Electoral Commission to be able to come up with that mechanism that says what exactly is it that we're going to do if this player, this media house, this journalist behaves in a certain way that goes against the law that we have in the country.
Well, coming to you as someone who's actually in the field, what has been your relationship like from the previous elections in terms of participation as a journalist and how the ZEC has been conducting their rules and regulations? How has it been for you as a journalist on the ground?
I think after tonight, I've got great respect for Madam Joyce Kazembe because she has not tried to spin the issues. I really appreciate the fact that she has acknowledged that there is a partisan coverage and that it needs to change. And I need to applaud her for that. That is what we expect from ZEC, to acknowledge the truth and then to see how we can work around it. My experience as a journalist in this country covering elections has been horrible. I will start with 2008. I was denied. ZEC refused to accredit me, and my informants told me that it was not actually ZEC, it was the CIO, which gave an instruction that I should not be accredited as a journalist covering the election, although I had been generally accredited as a Zimbabwean journalist covering news in Zimbabwe. But ZEC refused. They were so unprofessional. They refused to accredit me. And then someone from there said, oh, they have been told that you're a national security risk. I mean, that's pure partisanship. ZEC gets involved in partisan issues. It gets into the ground. Instead of being a referee, it wants to play the ball. And that was my experience in 2008. I covered the election nonetheless. And then when the results were not coming out, we all know the story. ZEC was not forthcoming. ZEC should engage with the media and explain issues to the media. The media had to second guess what was going on. And it was quite clear that ZEC was captured. And it has been acknowledged subsequently, in subsequent years. While we now know what was happening, I remember that in 2008, one of the commissioners, the late Professor Kahari, came out and said, Tajigiwa, we've lost the election. but they are not allowing us to release the result. And these are the sort of things that for me as a journalist, they're very difficult, to deal with, because I expect ZEC to be a professional elections body. Today, the opposition Triple C went to ZEC asking for a voters roll. They were not given. ZEC actually called the police in order for them to arrest the Secretary General of Triple C. So it shows that it is not it cannot run free and fair and credible elections. And for us now as journalists, as we cover these issues, we become collateral damage, because we are expected to behave like journalists from ZBC and the Herald who follow the party line, the ZANU-PF line. And we cannot do that as journalists, because we've got professional ethics that we need to uphold. And we wish that ZEC would understand that situation. I feel sorry for the commissioners. I'm quite aware what goes on at ZEC. I feel sorry for the commissioners because they're taking orders, but that should not be the case. And we've reported on these issues time and time again. ZEC is partly, it's a militarized institution with military personnel. The commissioners, they come out and defend that. When we write about those things, they say we are being unpatriotic, and which is quite unfortunate. And so I hope that this coming election in 2023, journalists will be able to do their work properly. They won't be subjected to election violence that we've been seeing lately. They won't be intimidated like we've seen in previous elections. They won't be beaten up like what happened in 2008. They won't be intimidated by the police like what happened in 2008. I think the head of law and order section, Makelenge, was calling us in 2008, threatening us because of the coverage of the election. That time I was still working as a journalist, as a reporter for ENCA. And each time you would see my report on television, you would call me and intimidate me. And that is unacceptable in a place that is supposed to be a democracy. But that has been my experience, horrible. 2018 was slightly different because there was a bit of calm. But as we have seen with the current election, we have approached ZEC for a voters roll. How do you cover the election without a voters roll? As a journalist, in a professional manner, I'm supposed to have a voters roll. I'm supposed to break down the figures for my readers, or if I'm on television, for my viewers or listeners if I'm on radio. We're not able to do that. The biggest opposition political party today, 3 days before an election, is failing to access a voters roll, which is unacceptable. The voters roll that they got, ZEC disowned it. And when we started engaging with the gentleman who's replacing Madam Kazembe, he could not give us answers. We can't hear you now.
Election day, ballot paper printing, it ignores the electoral cycle which we have been talking about. The period before an election is as important as the day of broadcasting. Now you realize that public institutions always say the right words. We have been beaten up by police officers, by the military at times, and when you engage their leaders, they are quick to say, no, we're wrong, these people are wrong. You have the right to operate. So those at the top always have the right words to say, especially on public platforms. But you realize that the work on the ground is not always like that. Why I'm saying this about ZEC is ZEC knows how publicly owned media should be operating, how the media should be operating. We are only 4 days away from a by-election, but it has done nothing. It has said nothing. It only started engaging publicly owned media, specifically ZBC, I think about 2 weeks ago. Okay, then we'll say, okay, it's a step in the right direction, but we're only a year away from the general election, from the harmonized election. Doesn't make sense. This engagement should have started way back. if I'm to say 2017 or 2018, yes, but way back, further than that, because polarization within the media industry started way back, probably when I was still a baby. You see, ZECA, of course, when it was set up, it should have addressed all those issues. And then as a journalist covering elections, I'm itching to get an understanding as to how ZEC, when ZEC announced and how it announced, whether it was effective to journalists when it started accrediting them. You know, my comrades within the industry were very surprised to realize that only 4 journalists had been accredited to cover over 100 council and parliamentary elections, which will be going on, on the 26th. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. And everyone was actually surprised. And then today, I hear ZEC was accrediting again, but the process ended today again. So you will see that ZEC is not doing enough to accommodate the media. It has a role to accommodate the media to ensure that the media is operating in the right way, but it is not effectively doing that. Now, what we have been proposing for the past years is that ZEC seizes this accreditation of journalists. We are already accredited with the Zimbabwe Media Commission. We already pay a fee to the Zimbabwe Media Commission. So paying a fee to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is like paying double for one approval to do one thing. Generally, even if I pay a fee to ZEC, I'll do exactly the same job I was going to do with the ZMC card. So why not just allow us to work with the ZMC card instead of paying more? You realize that there's a lot of discord within ZEC when it comes to the media. They are quick to point out what privately owned papers, online radio stations, websites publish. It's not fair, it's not factual, and stuff like that. But they do not realize one thing. Zimbabweans own the Herald. Zimbabweans own ZBC. So
let me cut you in. It is the Zimbabweans who own the state-owned media houses. Coming to you, Commissioner, do you echo the same sentiments with the journalists here, or do you have anything different in order to defend the Commission?
It would be foolish for me to say I agree with what he's saying. I do not agree in total. And all these allegations about ZEC being captured by the state, I think that is really, this is the perception that we have been trying over the years to say we are an independent commission. We operate on our own. Nobody, even from the military, even from state agents, even from whoever they would like to believe, will actually come to tell us what to do. We are an independent commission and we are protected by the law. We actually say that. And what Rockwell and the last speaker were saying, these are generalized statements that they've always been saying against ZEC. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, I would like to think that it's an honest organization that is being led, that is conducting its duties. They referred to an electoral cycle, which is what we adopted in order to keep them informed all the time on what is happening. We have the post-election engagements. We invite them to come to a post-election conference, and they're represented. They come and we report to that, and they've made an input. And that's the information that they would like to get. We acknowledge any challenges that we meet. We acknowledge any pitfalls. We acknowledge any weaknesses. And there is always this allegation that we do not follow the law. We do not come up with regulations and rules and so on. I'm sorry to say that that is not our function, as a matter of fact. We only implement the law as designed and defined by Parliament. We have made submissions to Parliament from the time the 2013 Constitution came on board. We put together a body of what we call bright lawyers to come up with areas that needed to be addressed. But up to now, we have areas that really are not in sync. And all we can do is to point out, but it is not really our role to come up with laws. We recommend what should be done. And all this about what Oprah is saying about being captured and so on and whatever, I don't know about that. All I do know is that we conduct our work. And they're saying it's militarized. Do they know that we have only 11 persons out of the 165 on board who have a military background, 11, what percentage is that? It's a very small, tiny percentage. Yes. Please don't stop me. You allow those people to actually talk, to go on and talk. So give me time. And there's a statutory instrument 3428 gives guidelines. And these are outdated. We pointed it out. But if Parliament that represents people does not come out with regulations that are in sync with the times, there's nothing that we can do with all that. They mentioned per channel that the vote is shambled. Of course, it is shambled. It was leaked. We don't know from who, from where, and so on. As they come from our sources, definitely from us, but it is not ours. That is not. I mean, it's in raw form. These were the first registrants, and there were organizations like some of these that were giving these young people money to go and register. If they, we came across when we did doing the office to clean the voters' roll, occasions when an individual, young people registered 4 times, 6 times, 3 times because they were instigated to go and re-register because you can register from anywhere. So there's no point at that particular to tell whether you've been registered with us. And this whole process was elongated because there was a lot of cleaning to be done. It is unfortunate that people don't realize that, oh, they are, I don't know whether they are party to all those shenanigans. And statutory instrument 33 is open for anybody to actually use, particular media and the people that they are there to come to ZEC and mention these things. We've had workshops with media personnel, we have explained our role, and we've tabled to them our national plan for the next 4 years, 5 years, and they've been there when we're talking to them. And so to accuse them, what is the media, what are the political parties themselves doing to educate their following, they themselves, so that these people can come forward and say, we are being denied this and that and whatever. All the processes are open. We've published in the papers right from the beginning that we are going to start these processes. Up to now, yes, we are doing that. And this is an unusual, it's almost like a national election. It's an unusual development. And we must all, I mean, get into that and understand that this is something unusual. And when we go out to register people, they are not for these elections, that's for the biometric, that is for the limitation. People must understand and come forward and not mislead the young to go and register several times to do that. But in terms of being independent, I can say, at least from my experience, 21 years of experience in the commission, nobody ever came to me, I don't know to who else, to say you must operate in this manner, to actually tell us the way to behave. I never experienced that. And I'm saying that from the bottom of my heart and being honest about it. All these about is militarized by 11 people among 162. That's
Very much,
exaggeration of the highest exposure. Yes.
Commissioner. I think all the parties here have actually noted that the commission is actually not militarized. Coming to you, Patience, this is a question that is coming from our audience, and it says, can the international community assist to maintain order and transparency in order to have free and fair and credible elections? This person is called Sindasai from our Facebook page.
I think the role of the international community is acknowledged in terms of any election. That's why we actually have international observers who come to our country to observe elections, and they're invited by the government itself. And I believe last week or so, the Electoral Commission, the government actually invited international observers because they acknowledge that, yes, the international community has a role to play. They'll come in, they'll monitor the elections, they'll also produce their own report with recommendations around how we can also ensure that our elections our elections are free, they're fair, they're credible, and what are some of the, and they make recommendations around what are some areas for change based on international standards that are there at the different levels, whether it's SADC, the African Union, and as well as the UN level. I believe last week as well, the president, or was it Parliament, that actually agreed to domesticate the African Union protocol on democracy and governance. And that actually gives us that impetus to say that, yes, we are part of the international community. We do have standards that we have to uphold for us to have a democratic society. So yes, in short, the international community does have a role to play in elections.
do you feel that the international community, the journalists who are coming out from the previous elections, they were giving out real information of what was happening on the ground?
I think they were. I think they were. You know, when it comes to the media, it's always good that we have as many outlets, as many platforms as possible.
Yeah.
That way, our audiences can then determine what is correct and what is false, or what is in between, something like that. So we should not we shouldn't be really worried about what comes out, as long as we're doing the right thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we're doing the right thing, then what's there to worry about? If ZEC is credible, then let them come and let them film whatever they want to film. We shouldn't stop them. Of course, we know for a fact that sometimes you're told, if I go, and now what that does is it raises suspicion, even if there's nothing. It raises suspicion. Why am I being told not to film that? Why am I being told not to go there? You know. So I think journalists in the past have done their best, and I will not applaud publicly owned media. Why? Because for me, ZEC has failed to control them, and they've all failed to reform. But privately owned media, we should accept that they are privately owned. So we cannot use the same yardstick to determine how they operate, because these are privately owned organizations. Of course, they have ethics to abide by, to follow, but they are privately owned. Unlike these ones, who we own, we have to we have a right to tell them we want something which is fair, and they have to do that. But they have not been doing that since I don't know. So the publicly owned media is something else, but all the other guys, I think, since in the past elections, they've tried their best.
All right. Coming to you, Hopo, maybe you can tell us, how should the electorate receive media messages about the election processes, candidates, parties, and other information, talking about media literacy?
I think it should be an ongoing process in our society. It's unfortunate that it's not taught at school. You know, in America, you realize that kids start learning about their constitution. They start learning about elections, how they are done when they're 2 years old. By the time they get to 18 years old, they are fully aware of the processes of electoral processes, democratic processes, constitutional processes. They are aware of that. But in Zimbabwe, we don't have that. I think it needs to change. The second thing is that our media is a reflection of the society in terms of the economy. It's a reflection of the economic environment in the country. So they do not have the resources one would want. I'm talking about private media to do what is supposed to be done. There's also an element of our society. Generally, our society, people do not read books and things like that in order to understand. So you expect the media to be the bridge between the citizen and the institutions, like the one where Madam Kazembe is coming from, which is ZEC. And there is no appreciation in the public media, which is owned by us, the citizens. It should be covering what is in the national interest, not what is in ZANU-PF's interest. You will find that even when the day Nelson Chamisa set up his party, announced that he set up a party, he was not covered. In a normal society, an organization like ZEC would intervene and say, this is about elections, you need to give fair coverage, but I have to give it to Madam Kazembe because she has acknowledged that there is a problem, and she has acknowledged that it's something that needs to be resolved, and she has explained that they say they cover the president more because he's the head of state. But it would be fine, I think, by Zimbabwean standards, if they covered Emerson Mnangagwa more, but at least cover other opposition parties, Nelson Chamisa, Triple C as well. But they are not covered. It's like we're living in Rhodesia, where Ian Smith's Herald did not say anything about Robert Mugabe unless if it was evil. It did not say anything about the liberation fighters unless it was evil. And that is exactly, it's a reproduction of life in Rhodesia. On ZBC, they will even they won't give a coverage, but they will even lie about what is going on, and that is very unfortunate. And I don't think we are going to have a change of heart. My view is that ZEC is not capable of delivering a free and fair election. All his elections have been contested, and for good reason. I think the opposition in Zimbabwe needs to approach SADC because it is a right to do so, the AU and the UN if need be. I don't think ZEC in its current form is fit for purpose. It can never deliver an election. If an electoral body fails to give uh, a voters roll to the biggest opposition party, which is participating in that election 3 days before the election. I mean, they are shambolic. Madam Kazembe spoke about the issue of the voters roll, which is being forensic, which is going through forensic interrogation by Pachedu. Madam Kazembe said that it was not the proper one, but it was not leaked, as she said. It's not true. This is a voters' roll which was given to the opposition political party. They paid $20 for it. There's a serial number 014712. And I'm giving these specific facts because that's our job as journalists. It was given to LM Shiriebenga by ZEC, and it has a ZEC stamp. It was in February 2022. And so I don't know why Madam Kazembe is saying it was not given properly, because it is a ZEC stamp, unless if she's saying that someone stole a receipt book and a stamp from ZEC. I don't know. I don't know what she means by that. But you know, I come to these sort of discussions in order to make our listeners and our viewers understand the problems, not to be confrontational. Madam Kazembe is old enough to be my mother. I have to respect her. I will not personalize issues of ZEC to her because she's not the institution. She's just one of many people who are in that institution. I hope, you know, that one day Madam Kazembe will write a book and then we'll get to discuss. Thank you.
Coming back to you, Dr. Madekeni, do you think that the church is doing enough to give the electorate enough information, or how do you think the church should give the electorate information towards the electorate?
May I be allowed to intervene also, please? May I be allowed?
I'm not sure if they can hear you, Madam Kazembe, because I can't hear them.
Because I mean, you are making allegations and I mean, assigning us with this and that and whatever, which is not true. I must be allowed to actually respond to that. And they compare whoever, I mean, the young lady is ignoring that and letting that pass like as if it is fact. It is not fact. And I want to respond to she wants to give the point now. And then I hope she can give me time to actually do that.
I think there's a technical problem, Madam Kazembe, because I can't hear them, and I would like them to give you an opportunity to respond to what I say.
Like I've highlighted earlier, that because the church is trusted by the people, I think there's more that can actually be done if the church plays its role in terms of providing the information. But maybe something that I can touch on from what we are seeing right now, you see the animosity that is there between the ZEC and the media. This is what gives sometimes. This is what gives the youths, the young people, the feeling of resignation, the institutional weaknesses that we see. It gives the youth that impression that nothing really meaningful is going to come out of this election, which should not be the case. So I think maybe the church, what the church should do going forward is also to advocate for more reforms so that we can have more access to information, that we can have more media space. What can be done? What is the alternative from what we hear from SEC that there is bias in terms of political coverage. What is the alternative from what we hear from the media, that SEC is inaccessible, is doing this and that? What is the alternative? So I think the church can actually play a very serious role in terms of advocacy. It's a long process and continuous process that should actually be ongoing.
Commissioner, I would want you to respond to that question and also respond to Patience Marizi's question. He says, how is ZEC addressing the problems which have been indicated by Mr. Chimon?
Mr. Chimon is hopeful, I'd like to believe. And he's talking about that the voters' roll that went to Kwachedu was not a leaked one because there was a stamp, there was payment, and so on. He does that. Advocate Chamisa himself came out and said they planted people. There are people that were there within the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission that they contacted, that they are, I would like to believe they are paying them to actually give them that information. He said so himself. So it means that document, when a document is issued from ZEC, it must have the signature of the director. Whoever gave them, they didn't get that. They can pay, of course, they'll get a receipt and so on and whatever, but it didn't pass. That is a preliminary one that is used for registering people, which has been not cleaned, which has not passed through APIS to clean and make good the voters' roll that was going to be used. If you look at that and look at what is going to be used now in the forthcoming by-elections, there will be, a marked difference between those. And all these allegations about ZEC doing that or not doing that and so on and whatever. Yes, these are perceptions really, because we are doing all we can. We don't take directions from anybody. We are an independent commission and we operate in that manner. And so really, honestly, to say that, and then ZEC says he dines and drinks, I suppose, with the ruling party. I mean, those are perceptions. We don't do that. Even someone was saying, because you're in proximity with the ZANU PF offices, they come sometimes to actually tell you what to do. We don't do that. I've never gone to there. I've never taken any instructions from that. And I am also keen to this whole process, given my background, 21 years in the commission. Yes, I've gone there. There are things that have been corrected. Yes, we admit there have been mistakes that have been made, which we have done everything. That's why we want, as a commission, to register political parties. It's silly to have 176 political parties that have written that they're political parties who are not registered. We cannot monitor them. We cannot really direct them to do this and that because we have really no legal authority to do that because they're not registered. Let's register like Zambia. Let's register like South Africa. And they can actually stop a political party from participating and actually fine them a fee. But here in Zimbabwe, it's a free-for-all. Parliament is not coming up with any legal reforms to ensure that they actually address the areas that we think need to be addressed. And for us to be accused, WOPL particularly, to say that we are a vote institution, I'm sorry, we are not. I'll refute that comprehensively and thoroughly in every day of my life. I've been there. Nobody's ever approached me. I don't know who they've approached. And I'd like to say we are an independent commission. Yes, we get the money, yes, from the state. And that's their role to give us the money to go on. But whatever it is, what we do is an independent action. And when we do that, then there are those, that are given money to spread rumors, to spread falsehood about ZEC. Well, that's their role, I suppose. That's why they are supported by whoever supports them to actually do it. So, yes.
Thank you, Commissioner, for shedding clarity on that.
Yes, but you allow the others to take a long time to respond. But all these are being directed against ZEC. So we must allow me to respond fully to some of these allegations. And we are doing everything we can. If Parliament does not come up with legislation that will allow us and give us the space and the authority to do that, we can only do so much. And the political parties themselves, what are they doing in Parliament without actually making sure those reforms are put in place? And so that we have even more independence to undertake this rather than being tied down because of lack of supporting legislation. So please, The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is an independent commission that does its work independently without taking any instructions, any whatsoever from the state. What we get from the state is the budget and the money that we get. And we are independent.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner, for that clarity. It's very important that we know these things from your end, because what's on the ground is just street politics. That is why we invite you to platforms like this, so that you can shed clarity on what's happening within the commission. Directing this question to Hopo from Frank Tarona, the question goes, how serious is the problem of Zimbabwean populace being more inclined towards socialite news rather than political and economic current affairs? How hard-hitting are the effects?
Thank you very much. I'll answer that question, but I just want to respond to one thing that Madam Kazembe said. She said the voters' roll was not the proper voters' roll. I just want to alert her that the voters' roll that was given to Triple C, which they paid for, is exactly the voters' roll. It's exactly the voters' roll which is on the BVR site. So I do not know what she means, but let me answer the question that you have asked me. I think youths in Zimbabwe have been battered by poverty. They've been battered by lack of opportunities. There are no jobs. When they get home, there's no clean drinking water, there's no lights. Their parents do not have jobs. Their grandparents do not have pensions. Their pensions were washed away because of corrupt rule. And because of that, they take refuge in things like music, socialites, and unfortunately, most of them end up doing drugs, because that is the reality of life. You know, if you are subjected to a miserable life, you end up following things that are not necessarily what you should be following. But what we need to do as media is to provide platforms where this energy or this frustration can be directed towards doing productive things. So for instance, if you noticed that today Passion Jala, who does his walkabouts, was in Chirade today. And if you look at the video, the kids in Chirade stayed away, because there's now an incremental political awareness and consciousness within the youths that the problems that they are facing today can only be resolved through voter registration and them going to vote, protecting their vote, and electing the leader of their choice, whether it's Mnangagwa or Chamisa. That's their right. Unfortunately for ZEC has failed to provide the required number of outlets for people to go and register. Harare, a city with more than 3-4 million people, has got only 2 places to go and register. ZEC wheels out its mobile registration once in a while, but the voter registration process in many other democracies where I've lived, it's an ongoing process. When I was studying in Britain, I could register to vote by simply going onto the internet and registering to vote. In Zimbabwe, it's impossible because they do not want people to register to vote. The ruling party, which controls state institutions, do not want people to register to vote. Have you ever heard ZANU-PF encouraging people to register to vote? None whatsoever. How many times have you seen ZEC being proactive, like many other electoral bodies in the region, in South Africa, in Zambia, and in Malawi, where there were elections, where every 5 minutes there's an advert encouraging people? ZEC, of course, will say we were not given money. But what I find interesting is that whenever ZEC says they were not given money, if you go to ZEC's headquarters, there are brand new 4x4s, which is a Zimbabwean disease, where you would rather buy a car and not buy a cancer machine, where you'd rather buy a car and not buy things that do the core business of why you are there. ZEC should be having offices in all our district offices in Harare. Where I live in Chisipiti, I should be able to go to Greystone or Highlands to register to vote. Someone who's coming from Kambuzuma, someone who's coming from Borodale, someone who's coming from Greendale, we're served by 2 offices. That is unacceptable. That is why the perception that Madam Kazembe talks about persists, because you can't be an election board which makes voter registration difficult. It defeats the purpose of why you're there in the first place. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that.
And that's not true to say there are no voter registers. All we have 73 open throughout the life that are open for registration. All district offices are open.
How many do we have in Harare, madam? How many offices do we have? Where can I go and register tomorrow? How many offices are?
Sorry. To patients on behalf of the media monitors in Zimbabwe. As the current waves of change are coming through Zimbabwe, you know how it has been globally. Social media has been playing a huge impact in terms of information dissemination. Is social media really worth investing in for political parties or for the electoral management situations currently here in Zimbabwe?
Yes, I believe, yes, definitely. Social media is worth investing in at all the different levels, from registration to vote, from providing information for citizens accessing that information. There is definitely a need to invest in social media. Social media is very immediate to citizens. It's on your phone. It's something that citizens can be able to access immediately. And whether it's newspapers investing in social media so that they can be able to provide information, whether it's the political parties investing so that they can be able to access directly the electorate where they cannot be able to reach them, whether it's the electoral commission needing to actually talk to the citizens in a way that they can't on a day-to-day, the expense that they talk about in terms of providing voter education, in terms of registration. Social media definitely can play that role. We have realized, of course, as media monitors, that there is a challenge in social media. Issues of disinformation, misinformation are enhanced on social media. They're not the only platforms that carry misinformation, for example, but they definitely do enhance issues around disinformation, misinformation, because in a lot of cases, it's a very unregulated space. Anybody can be able to write anything that they want around anything. And in the various researches that we did around social media and how people use it, we actually realized that people will definitely get a message on WhatsApp, they'll get a message on Twitter, but they will always go to the radio, the newspaper to confirm what it is that they've read or what it is that they know or they think they know from social media. So while yes, definitely we need to make those efforts to put more accurate information online, we also need to be able to we also need to be aware of the challenges that it also has in terms of providing that information.
Paper, are you still vying for social media, or you think going back to print and just television and radio? What do you think of social media?
Okay, when you say as a paper, I'll be assuming that I'm here representing my paper. No, I'm here representing myself as a journalist.
That's fine.
Okay, I think social media is very important. It's part of the technological evolution. We cannot be going back. Of course, it will be hard for print to die, but eventually it will.
Yeah.
And where technology is going, social media is the next big newspaper. If you realize over time, social media has been breaking stories. People have been getting news from social media. Even the November 2017 coup was broken by social media. We saw tanks on WhatsApp, on Twitter. Yeah, it's just Shoramba. As journalists would say, this is not possible. It's fake. Only to wake up at 11 p.m. and the general is on TV speaking to Zimbabweans. That was from the late Minister S.B. Moore. So social media has become the main source of news. And what has to be done, there should be a lot of investment in ICTs, especially in rural areas. You realize that I think Zimbabwe is less than 35% internet penetration, which is wrong because the internet is now a human right. Those in the rural areas will always be backward. The Zimbabwean rural areas, I don't know about other countries, will always be backward. I was in Tare South on Sunday, Saturday and Sunday. And there wasn't even 2G. So they are not on WhatsApp. That's basically what that meant. So, and which means if you are not on WhatsApp, then you do not know what is happening in the country because everything is now being discussed on WhatsApp. Social media is very important. And of course, we have to keep the paper, but eventually it is going to take over full time.
Right. As Silvera House or the church, can you say you're using social media enough for information dissemination to the electorate?
Well, yes, definitely. Social media is here to stay. And I think what we need to do now is to embrace it. And as Sovera also, we have social media handles. We are there on Twitter, we're there on Facebook, and we use it to update on the various works that we do. And also the various church organizations do the same thing. But what is now more important when it comes to social media is not just disseminating the information, but what is in the information. So you then see that the quality of what is being disseminated also needs to improve, which means things need to be well researched. We need facts, we need statistics, we need more credible information. And then there's the other aspect that we need to deal with, where we need to be realistic that we are not in America, we are in Zimbabwe. So we've got this digital divide that we have between the rural and the urban populace. I think like what Leo said, there are areas where you do not even have access to the network. The church still remains a well decentralized structure where more information can be disseminated beyond the social media.
Commissioner, coming to you, how has been social media an advantage towards this coming election, the by-elections and the 2023 harmonized elections? How has the commission used the social media space?
Generally, we tend to use the main line, but we do have handles. We've used the Twitter and we've used Facebook and also Instagram to actually communicate. WhatsApp for definite all the time with the messages and asking for information. And I've always been responding to that when they send my questions and everything, needing clarification on this and that. I think we have engaged. I mean, as everybody's saying, it's the way forward. We cannot wish it away. We cannot wish it away. But certainly there's also need for mainline media that are accessible to more people. Yes, I know Facebook, I know Twitter may be accessible to a number of people. Yes, but we still need the mainline media, the print media, to actually be there. I'm saying this because whatever is said, it does give a balance to what goes out. Because not too many people, quite a number of households have radios, they have TVs and so on and whatever, they can access that. But for them to be using Instagram and so on and whatever, it means they would need my bundles in some cases to be able to access those spaces. But they are good to those who can get them. But the problem is actually the control. How do you control that? Do you control social media per se, so that it keeps within the confines of the law without coming up with vicissitudes and also with misleading information, so that because people, I mean, a lot of people can access that, even you can access that. And in areas where you do not have these radio stations and access and so on, they can use that. But what is important is to use social media, in a manner that educates people, in a manner that grows them in their political views, and that assists them in actually making judgment about what is going on the ground, particularly with respect to my elections. Yes, many people can actually access that, but how much of that is the truth is the question, because sometimes we do have to respond to some of the misinformation that comes through not only that, even some papers actually, if you look at the headline sometimes and then read the content, it's completely different. It gives a completely different picture. The headline itself, and then people, when they read it, they notice that now is not reflecting what is written. So let's be, even in the media, let's be honest enough to project what it is in the headline, because that catches people's interest, either negatively or positively. And so on. You see a headline about this, and when you read the content, as you find out, so let's just be honest. The intention is to build the country together. There are problems, there are weaknesses in all sorts of media. The intention is to come together eventually, so that we build one country, so that the information is somewhat related without coming up with a falsehood that actually discredits the work of organizations, because that way we will not grow as a country. Even if you do down the Zimbabwe Electoral, it is a fact that it is there. And it is your Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, it's not ours. It is a national institution. And all we have to do is to ensure that these laws that actually prevent it from having teeth are put in place. We should be able to do that, to sanction political parties, to sanction whoever the leaders, but we don't have it. It needs law. Our own parliament, they're sitting there and we've submitted, but it takes ages, I don't know why, to come out with that electoral reform that I was saying. So we all need to come that without throwing brickbats at each other, without kutukana and so on. Let's meet when we have workshops. We've invited media to these workshops and so on. We think we're reaching somewhere. And at the end of the day, there's something else you think you've reached. But when they go out and go back to the one, they go back to their old thoughts and start vilifying. That's not the intention. We've tried during difficult periods to engage the media. We've had many, and let's continue to do that. And we have create common ground so that in the end, what we are creating is a good Zimbabwe for the generations to come when we are all gone and dead. That's what I can say. But we want everybody to have trust in the organization, to help it build these organizations. What are the things? Zokupopoterwa and so on, it doesn't help. We want, inputs that build an organization.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. It's the National Movement of Catholic Students in Zimbabwe. We are really grateful to the Commission for giving us the platform to actually be discussing voter education. We know that you have actually provided with someone who's going to be with us at the upcoming national conference, which is going to be happening in Masvingo during the Easter conference. Maybe to round up this discussion, I'll come to you, Hopo. You can actually tell us your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. My closing remarks are that it's important for the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to be independent. It's important for the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to understand that it should not just be independent, but be seen to be independent. And it should respect the role of the media whilst we're participating in the electoral processes which it manages. As I told you, in 2018, in 2008, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, then headed by General Chiweshe, who's now a Supreme Court judge, it banned me as a journalist without giving me a plausible excuse why I was being banned. That does not reflect independence of an organization that is supposed to be neutral and impartial when it is delivering elections to the country or managing elections for us as citizens. Madam Kazembe is right that it is a board that should belong to Zimbabweans. But at the moment, Zimbabweans and us in the media do not feel that it belongs to us. Because as I said earlier, the Secretary General of the main opposition party in the country, Citizens Coalition for Change, has failed to access the voters' roll. She said the voters' roll that was released was not the correct one. Fair enough. Now they have gone to say, can we have the final version? They have not been given. What does it do? It calls the police so that they can be arrested. How then can they claim to be independent when they are working on instructions, obviously, of someone? I don't think there is a ZEC commissioner who's idiotic or silly to think that when an opposition party or political party comes to you, they're coming to you because you are responsible for the process in which they are participating in. But the fact that they call the police for the Secretary General of the Citizens Coalition for Change, it makes citizens become upset and angry with ZEC. Because how do you arrest someone who is your visitor? He has not insulted you, he has simply asked for a voter's roll. So that independence should not be just a talk, it should be delivered through the action on the ground. I, as a citizen, I'm entitled to get a voter's roll But ZEC said, we can give you the voters roll, but it's at our own discretion. What kind of democracy is that, where a citizen who is going to participate in an election is not allowed or is given a voters roll, but at the discretion of the electoral body? It's unacceptable. In other countries, these things are done openly and transparently. I should be able to access the voters roll as long as I pay the fee that is required. In other countries, it's free, but let's say they need a fee. When I go with a fee, as Triple C, which is the main participant, did today, they should be given the voters roll. Now, how do you go into an election when you are the main opposition and you don't have a voters roll? And then the electoral body claims that they're impartial. It's unacceptable.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. Commissioner, maybe for the sake of time, I can just say your closing remarks in 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Kike. Just let me thank you for inviting me to this, and I hope we'll have quite a number of these. And then sometime in the future, even though when I'm leaving the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission in 4 months' time, okay, but we'd like to keep on engaging. It's good even when we are throwing big bags every time. It's good to hear the sentiments of those. Yes, there might be areas that need to be corrected, areas that we need to agree on, and so on. But allegations and counter allegations and misquoting what ZEC actually does and is said and who influences ZEC, I don't think that is, well, I know that is not fair, because I keep on saying the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is an independent. In my world, years, unless they do that behind closed door, I've never heard of the military or the state or whoever, the police, coming to give instructions to us to say, do this and do that, and stop this guy and whatever. If the commission itself says yes, stop, then they've got the right to do that, because it's part of their mandate. If somebody is intransigent, then the person will be stopped, yes, engaging in the but really, it's been an eye-opener. It's been an interesting engagement, and I really thank you for inviting me. And we hope we can keep on engaging. Hopefully, I wish you well in your endeavors, and hope that by the time you come back, you will have gotten to some understanding of some sort on areas that we do agree, and try to convince each other that it should be like this and so on and whatever, and realize our desire in meeting not at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much for those kind remarks. I really appreciate them. Engagement indeed is the only way we can resolve these problems. And I really want to thank the host and the organization for inviting me as well.
Thank you very much. Dr. Alice, your closing remarks.
Thanks. So we sit here, we discuss these issues, and we see that we've got problems, and we want these problems to go away. So my wish, my parting shot to all the parties is that can we move from these discussions to action? ZEC says it observes the law, but Parliament is not coming up with the bills. Parliament does not make laws. Parliament passes laws. These bills have to come from somewhere. Can we have a situation where the media itself, the journalists themselves, one day will wake up and come up with a shadow bill and say, we want the media in Zimbabwe to be governed this way, follow this, rather than just shouting at each other, these counter accusations that we're using. Can we move forward? Even the church itself, can it also come up with alternative solutions to these problems? The ZEC itself, anyone can petition Parliament. We hear the ZEC saying, the Parliament is coming up with the law. What is that they've done to engage the Parliament to bring this, to put pressure on the executive to bring the laws? When are they going to petition the Parliament? So the Parliament can do hearings and come up with solutions. So my appeal.
You'd be surprised how many documents were presented. Many documents.
Thank you very much, Alice. Leo.
Okay, thank you. Probably my parting shot would be to the Commission. I appreciate that she was part of this discussion, which is very commendable. Public platforms, public commissions or public organizations should be, as she has, be open to question, and so that they also answer. My parting shot would be, I hope that ZEC gets to a point where it identifies publicly or privately owned papers or broadcasters who go against its code of conduct and they get punished. If I'm the one who's wrong, let me be punished. Let it be an example to others, so that we would have made an example of that error. You see, so having a publication or publications is continuously do something without publication, without punishment, creates a situation where they feel like they're immune. And then probably another thing could be the fact that ZEC should be made to understand the role ZBC and the Herald or the papers play in the Zimbabwean situation. Those papers are totally different and they should be treated totally different from other papers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, so that is it. Thank you so much. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share some notes with you, and I'm going to share with you another broadcast again about the voter education. This one happened today. Okay. So thank you. Goodbye and good night.